Also tonight, after Joe Biden's latest string of bizarre gaffes, highlighting problems with his age and memory. Well, Democrats and the left, they are waking up to what we have been telling you on this program for years now, and that is the White House has a massive problem with Joe Biden. It's an age problem, and it's bad, and it's now obvious that Joe Biden is not fit to serve as your president. Last night, while exiting Marine One, well, here we go again. Biden appeared to hit his head. This comes as a new ABC poll shows that a staggering, look at this, nearly 9 in 10 Americans, 86% of you, the American people, think, rightly so in my view, that Biden is too old to serve another term in the White House. That'd be 5 more years. Now, with the country so divided, when was the last time 86% of Americans agreed on anything? Most people can't agree on the time of day. And instead of worrying about her husband's mental health, well, Jill Biden is doubling down with the excuses. In last week's damning special counsel report with Robert Hur noted that Biden couldn't even remember within several years. This is sad. This is tragic when his son Beau died. But this weekend, Jill Biden defended Joe's inability to remember, writing in a campaign email, quote, well, if you've experienced a loss like that, you know that you don't measure it in years, you measure it in grief. OK, and according to an upcoming book, she allegedly berated staff for not stopping a disastrous press conference that Joe held in 2022. And if that was bad, last week, well, had to be Joe Biden's worst week of his presidency. It should not be a surprise that Jill is rushing to cover for his growing struggles. After all, she did have ample practice doing so, reportedly now having to show Joe how to walk off stage. You can't remember to exit stage left, stage right. You know, he could have used, couldn't have done it without her help, frankly. He gets lost in his own White House, by the way. He got lost delivering remarks with the King of Jordan. Can't make this up, but it happened. Take a look.
Your Majesty, over to you.
Mr. President, thank you for your gracious hospitality.
I think I'll go to this side. No, that side. I couldn't remember. Anyway, last week's special counsel report is simply pointing out the obvious. Joe Biden has been and continues to struggle. It's not going to get better from here. Remember, this is a guy who has repeatedly now recalled conversations with a lot of dead people. French President Mitterrand, German Chancellor Helmut Kohl, remember the Amtrak conductor that had long since passed, or introducing Congresswoman Jackie Walorski after she had passed away, or Margaret Thatcher. He has a lot of conversations with a lot of dead people. Yesterday, his attorney, Bob Bauer, attacked the special counsel's report. He was on CBS's Face the Nation, but then waffled on whether or not he wanted the full interview, the transcripts, to be released. Take a look.
So along with the legal conclusion comes this flood of characterizations, factual misstatements, pejorative comments about the president that are inconsistent with DOJ policy and norms, and that, as you see, over the last 48 hours have been widely criticized by legal experts. This is not what prosecutors do. It is shoddy work product.
Would you recommend that these be made public if they indeed back up your personal record?
Again, there's a process underway. I'm not a specialist in that process, and so I really have to defer to those who have to work through those issues.
This would not be something you have to defer to anybody on. If what you're saying is true, then let's see the transcripts. And if they have videotape, let's see that too, soon. These transcripts may soon be released to Congress. And frankly, you, the public, you have a right to get the transcripts and see the video. And breaking tonight, the House impeachment inquiry managers, they have just subpoenaed the transcripts of the full interviews, giving the DOJ until 5 p.m. next Monday, that'll be a week from today, to comply. Now things have gotten so bad that even the media mob, they are coming to terms with truth and reality. On Friday, New York Times, their editorial board published a column highlighting, quote, the challenges of an aging president. While another New York Times op-ed this weekend was titled, quote, the question is not if Biden should step aside, it's how. Even Maureen Dowd is now calling on Biden's team to quit being in denial and writing, quote, ditch the stealth about health. She's not wrong. Politico echoing that alarm, saying the Democrats, they may need to turn to Plan B and replace Biden on their ticket. Even Biden's staunchest defenders on the left, they are sounding the alarm. Let's take a look.
This is a problem for the president. Anderson, the most damaging things that can happen in politics are things that reinforce a meme that's out there that is hurting you. And the central meme that is hurting the president is this issue of age.
Look, I'm a Biden supporter. I slept like a baby last night. I woke up every 2 hours crying and went to bed. This is terrible for Democrats. And anybody with a functioning brain knows that.
If Biden's hubris is such that he doesn't understand the best interest of his party and, more important, his country, then he has to be shown the door, period.
Well, when you don't accept a Super Bowl interview, you're, I don't know, pulling averages, you're 3 points down in a two-way. It's the biggest television audience, not even close. And you get a chance to do a 20, 25-minute interview on that day, and you don't do it, that's a kind of sign that the staff or yourself doesn't have much confidence in you. There's no other way to read this.
All right, Carville, Begala, Van Jones, David Axelrod, Maureen Dowd. Those are a lot of prominent names within liberal Democratic circles. Remember, last month it was Van Jones himself who said that if he were Biden, I'd hide, I'd stay hidden. And Joe and his handlers might want to take that advice. That's probably the only advice they can give him. Let other people campaign for him. Hide him in the basement again. It worked once. Let's see if it can work a second time. Not everyone seems concerned, though, over his age. Hillary Clinton tried to downplay the issue in an interview last week. Let's look at this.
You know, I talk to people in the White House all the time, and, you know, they know it's an issue. But as I like to say, look, it's a legitimate issue. It's a legitimate issue for Trump, who's only 3 years younger, right? So it's an issue. I think Biden also should lean in to the fact that he's experienced. And that experience is not just in the political arena. It's like the stuff of, you know, human experience.
Yeah,
Character, wisdom.
All right, stating the obvious, the flood of advice coming from Biden's allies is not going to help, and the issue of his age, cognitive decline, are not going to get better. The cognitive decline is degenerative. It gets worse, not better. And anyway, Biden hasn't had a clean, blunder-free public event that we can think of in months now. And at this point, even a complete makeover likely is not going to be able to help him overcome the damning special counsel report. And he's not getting any younger. They can't escape what's happening. But don't worry, our giggling vice president told the Wall Street Journal she is ready to serve. And she sounded pretty eager to take over, if you ask me. The only problem is somehow, magically, she's less popular than Joe. Look at this recent survey. Only 28% of you, the American people, have a favorable opinion of her, compared to 53% of view her negatively. Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.